Hey, Nick. Sean Spicer. I understand there's some controversy brewing about how many subscribers you have on YouTube. You have more subscribers than anybody. It's probably the biggest, largest YouTube subscription that anybody's had. But also, it's not numbers that matter, Nick. And I know everyone's going to quibble over this, but it's content. It's quality. And your subscribers are amazing. They're great. They're high quality subscribers, and that's really what you have to look at. Don't just focus on the numbers. I mean, if people are spewing a bunch of fake news, just don't get in the mud. They're amazing folks. Their engagement, the way that they like the videos. Anyway, I hope this puts this to the end. I hope that this controversy is over, and we know who the real YouTube subscriber champ is, and it's you, Nick.
Those files do exist.
Yeah, thousands and thousands of pages of files. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files.
We'll get to it. Oh dear Lord, Lordy. So In Time is prepared to officially report that we are not in the worst possible timeline, but rather in the most bizarro possible timeline. I don't know where to begin with this one. I really don't. We are about to play an O'Keefe video, which I swore we'd never do. We spent half a yesterday listening to Marjorie Taylor Greene and agreeing with her, and now we are playing an O'Keefe video. For those of you, I don't have, I should have a Bible somewhere here. I don't have it handy, but I'm reasonably sure. And lo, Nick played an O'Keefe video, and the seventh seal was opened. This is, and I make a lot of jokes about this, which I don't normally do on Overtime. This is a much more serious program, but this is a little bit of a complicated situation, and it requires some sussing out to do properly, and that's what we do. So that's what we're going to do. But this is something that is very easy to get wrong, and it's been gotten wrong against Democrats many times, and In Time has shouted to the rafters about how people have been treated unfairly, and it cuts both ways. So we're going to talk about what's right, what's wrong, and how all of this plays out. So let's talk about what we have. We have a acting Deputy Chief of Special Operations Unit Office of Enforcement Operations, which is an extraordinarily high position in the Department of Justice. He is basically the head officer of enforcement operations, so all of the tactical stuff that goes on at the DOJ. He is the Deputy Chief Officer 4, so he's very high up in the DOJ. He has been caught saying, essentially, and we're going to play the tape, that Ghislaine Maxwell has received a sweetheart deal so that she would keep her mouth shut, that the DOJ is aware of this, that the DOJ has been redacting Democratic names and keeping redacting Republican names and keeping Democratic names on the Epstein files, and that, they're tampering with all the evidence and so on and so forth. He has said this. That he said this is not really in debate. And it's blowing up in a lot of various places for very good reason. The problem is, the source of this is James O'Keefe, Now, oh dear Lord, James O'Keefe, and let me get, because I had up his, okay, James O'Keefe has been around for a little while. He likes to consider himself a journalist. He is not a journalist. He's not even close to a journalist. He is often reported as a political operative. I was a political operative for a while. I've known a great many political operatives. Even the ones on the other side usually act with some degree of integrity. I mean, I've seen political operatives do some pretty crappy things, but he is not a political operative. He is a clown. James O'Keefe, whether he actually believes the realities that he spins or not, I don't know. I think he just wants attention, and he just feels justified in doing a tremendous amount of dishonest work and lying in order to promulgate what he believes is true. And there is nothing regarding nothing relating to integrity that has anything to do with James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe released videos. He was most famous originally for a bunch of recordings from ACORN, which was the Association of Community Organization for Reform Now. He accused them of a number of things, including destroying Republican voter registration ballots, which is highly illegal, and doing any number of things. I had worked with ACORN before. It was clear it wasn't true, and it was clear most of what he was saying was, and you could tell by the cuts that it was redacted and false. Nonetheless, Congress froze all their funding to ACORN, a number of investigations, the Government Accountability Office, the California State Attorney General's Office, and a number of other agencies got involved, and they all found that he had lied and that he had deceptively edited the videos and absolved ACORN of having committed any crimes whatsoever. But by this point, the damage was done, and ACORN was destroyed as an organization, which I have no doubt was played a role in what he was trying to do from the beginning. ACORN did do what registration groups do on both sides, which is they would go to largely Democratic areas and say, hey, would you like to register to vote? And they would take all of the registrations and turn them in. And there's a number of very good laws that say anybody who registers with you, you have to accept, even if they're from the other side. And I've done this. I've been in areas in California that were Democratic, and Republicans would say, "Hey, I'd like to register to vote." It's like, here you go. Give me your registration card, and it is as safe as any Democratic registration card, because that's the process. That's how it works. So O'Keefe said that they had been destroying the. Anyways, it doesn't matter. He's done a number of videos since then. They've all been deceptively edited, and he has been a darling of the right because he at least accomplishes destroying left-leaning organizations, whether he's doing it fairly or not. So this is our source for information that I believe is in fact true. So we have to break down how we evaluate sources and how we evaluate what information we get from those sources. So let's do that. What is an unreliable source? There is a misconception. I do this all the time. This is due to a number of cognitive biases. The one that most applies here is what's called confirmation bias. We tend to look at the evidence that we agree with and give it more weight than evidence that we don't agree with. It doesn't matter if they have equal weight. We give one more weight than the other. So a lot of people are looking at James O'Keefe now and saying, well, first of all, he's on the right. So if he's saying it, it must be true, because why else would he tank the right? Well, I have no idea why else he would do it. But it doesn't make him more credible that he's attacking his own side. It does not add credibility. It feels like it should. It really feels like it should. But just as he's either credible or he's not. He's either someone who follows journalistic guidelines and has integrity, or he isn't. I am telling you right now, he isn't. Period. End of discussion. There is no debating that point. So it doesn't matter if he's attacking his side. It doesn't matter who he says he's speaking for. It doesn't matter who he's working with. He is not a reliable source. Having said that, what does that mean? Not a reliable source doesn't mean he's lying. Doesn't mean he's lying. It means we can't take anything that he says at its word. It's not evidence. It may be true. It may not. We don't know. He is unreliable. There's also another tendency to take unreliable sources and assume that they're lying because they're unreliable. Well, that's not necessarily true. If you know someone who's a hypochondriac, we'll call him Bob, and a buddy of yours comes up and says, hey, I haven't heard from Bob in a while. Have you heard of No, I don't know where Bob is. Says, okay, well, if you find out, let me know. And, then Bob calls me and says, oh my God, I have COVID. I have COVID. Oh my God, I have COVID. And he hangs up the phone. And your buddy comes back to you again and says, oh, have any word from Bob? Most of us would say, yeah, he thinks he's got COVID, but of course he doesn't. Well, why would we say that? Well, because he's a hypochondriac. And hypochondriacs tend to think they have things that they don't. Except here's the thing. Hypochondriacs get COVID at the same rate as everybody else. So it's just as likely that he has COVID as it would be for anybody else. So you can't sit there and say because he's a hypochondriac, he doesn't have COVID. But that's how we think. That's the process that most of us would go through. Because he's a hypochondriac, he must not have it. He must be lying about it. No, he's unreliable. We don't know. So the answer is the same. I don't know how Bob is doing. He says he's got COVID. He might. I don't know. Because he's unreliable. So, the evidence here is compelling. But it's compelling in a different way than I think O'Keefe paints it, than the media has painted it. We are going to discuss what the evidence is, but we cannot do that without discussing the source, who is the most unreliable source in media today. I would take Fox News reporting any day over anything James O'Keefe said. He does undercover sting operations and then heavily edits the videos. That doesn't mean this isn't newsworthy for a number of reasons that we're going to get into. But that has to be made clear. And that's just not negotiable. And there's going to be Democrats who are going to say, hey, finally he got it right. No, you're saying that because he's saying something you already agree with. He is unreliable. He might be telling the truth. He might not. There's no way to know. But if he's telling the truth, it's the first time I've seen it. So, what did he do? He did what he usually does, which is a sting operation. He had a woman, post a fake profile on a dating app. I think it was called Hinge. She went on 2 dates with Joseph Schnitt, who we said earlier is the Deputy Chief of Staff at the Office of Enforcement Operations at the DOJ. He said some extraordinary things, and he did say them. He absolutely said them. Whether he said them. And that's why we're covering this. He said these things. So he said some extraordinary things, and then they released the video. Let's get into, and this is the part I can't believe, we're actually going to play from, and he founded, O'Keefe founded Veritas, this organization that kicked him out for allegedly embezzling funds. So in theory, he's not supposed to work for Veritas anymore, but my understanding is that Veritas is involved in this. So I don't know what the hell's going on. I know O'Keefe is really not a particularly good human being. At any rate, let's look at the video, because we do need to break this down, and I think this is actually extraordinarily important video for a number of reasons. So let's get into this. And I want to make sure, okay, you guys should be able to hear it just fine. Oh, it did play a little bit, so we're going to knock it back.
But those files do exist.
Yeah, thousands and thousands of pages of files. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files. Leave all the liberal, Democratic people in those files.
I think they visited that Maxwell person.
Yeah.
And also involved.
Got transferred to a minimum security prison too recently, which is against BOP policy because she's She's a convicted sex offender. They're offering her something to keep her on shut.
That was the acting deputy chief of the Office of Enforcement Operations, Joseph Schnitt, telling a stranger about...
All right. What did he say there? He said a few very important things. He said, first of all, that Ghislaine Maxwell was transferred to a minimum security facility to keep her mouth shut. This was done in violation of DOJ policy. We already know that. Every single state Department of Justice that I am aware of does not permit sex offenders to be in minimum security. It's medium security or higher. Is to the best of my knowledge. There may be a state that I'm unaware of, but certainly the DOJ does not permit it. So if you're at the state level, you don't go to minimum security. She was convicted not just as a sex offender. So she's not someone who, you know, and we've heard the stories, and we know there are stories of people who, you know, a man who decided to urinate in public and got tagged as a sex offender. These things have happened. That's not her. This is sex trafficking in at least 200 girls across other countries, literally importing girls for sex work at a minimum security facility. We didn't need this guy to tell us that something is wrong. This is why people have been upset about this and should be far more upset about it than they have been, as far as I can tell, because she is absolutely, I mean, she is a convicted sex trafficker in minimum security on work release. And the last time they did this was with Epstein. And what did he do during work release? Well, according to one of the victims, he was raping other women while on work release for the crimes he committed and was convicted of in 2008. I don't understand why this isn't seen as a bigger deal. So this guy has admitted that. We all already know that. But it is important to note that a member of the Justice Department admitting that it's a violation of their policies, Pam Bondi hasn't said that. She's been asked repeatedly, why did they move Ghislaine Maxwell to a minimum security facility? And she won't answer that question. This guy just did. And this guy admitted that it's a violation of their policies, and he knows it. Okay, let's play more.
About the FBI and DOJ's handling of the Epstein files. Schnitt, who works at a high level inside the Department of Justice, goes on to comment on the inconsistent statements, special treatment of Ghislaine Maxwell, and the blatant backtracking on promises of transparency.
And what do you do for work again?
I work for the Department of Justice.
Okay.
Been there like 23 years. I'm an analyst. I'll be acting deputy chief of our office for a few months starting next week. I work closely with like all the federal law enforcement agencies and the U.S. attorney's offices, the prosecutors and stuff. The thing is, it's interesting because I do deal with so many of the agencies, like the Bureau of Prisons, the Marshal Service, the FBI, U.S. attorney's offices.
Recently, the FBI and DOJ have come under fire for promising transparency, then refusing to release footage and unredacted documents, going directly...
All right. Again, there's a part of me that just bristles at the fact that we're playing this. This is O'Keefe and the Veritas Group, and I've made my opinions on O'Keefe clear, and I think any even brief study into O'Keefe is going to back up what I've said about him, but we'll continue this. I do, unfortunately, also need to pause this video intermittently because of the way the YouTube algorithm works, and if we don't comment on it every minute to 2 minutes, we get a copyright strike. So I apologize for the intermittent breaks. We will do them, and I'll try to make them salient.
Against the public's expectations and the promises made by Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel. In a DOJ press release, Attorney General Pam Bondi stated, quote, "This Department of Justice is following through on President Trump's commitment to transparency and lifting..."
All right, we already know that the files that have been given to the what have been called the oversight Democrats. So the Democrats on the oversight committee, although it has to be noted that at least 3 Republicans are working with them, so it's the oversight committee. We don't usually say the oversight committee because the chairman of the oversight committee is deliberately tanking this entire process to the best of his ability. He says he's helping, but he's doing everything he can to shut it down. As is the Speaker of the House. Having said that, okay, they are following through on Trump's commitment to transparency. No, the files that they've sent, in some cases, entire pages are redacted, and the subpoena that they issued was very explicit that they not redact anything and leave the redacting, and there would have to be redacting because you have to redact the victims. You have to redact the victims. There's no discussion on that point. So there is going to be redaction, absolutely. But the committee wanted the redaction to be done on their side because they don't trust the DOJ. At issue here is the DOJ, Trump's DOJ, and his administration. That is what's at issue. So you cannot permit them to do the redacting. The subpoena explicitly asked for unredacted versions and said that they would release all of the information redacted themselves. That is not what they've gotten. What they've gotten is pages upon pages of redacted information, and we know for a fact already as well that this DOJ has gone through and redacted Trump's name from the files. We know it occurs in the files. We don't know with what frequency, but we know it occurs, and we know it's been redacted.
The veil on the disgusting actions of Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators, unquote, and also claimed they were shedding light on Epstein's extensive network, only to later claim that Epstein was acting alone, and that the only video evidence they had was of Epstein's personal child porn collection.
Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were.
In the same press release, Kash Patel claimed, quote, "There will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, and no stone left unturned."
So on the Epstein matter or any other matters, we are diligently working on that. I'm not going to withhold information from the American public ever.
Only to later claim on Joe Rogan.
All right. We know that his house was wired. He had a 7-story penthouse in New York. Every floor, every room, including the bathrooms, were all wired and recorded. So they were video recorded. We know he had a collection of video recordings of the victims. It had the names of the victims and of the people that the victims were with. We know this from the New York Police Department, who released that information that they got on a search warrant the day they went into his home in New York. So the saying that this is just a collection that he downloaded is an absolute lie. We know from the New York City Police Department, because they were the ones who were investigating this until the DOJ took it over and took the files from New York. So New York doesn't have jurisdiction anymore. It's the DOJ. That's why the trustworthiness of the DOJ is at issue. But we know for a fact that he had recorded all of this. Apparently, the only people recorded were the victims, not the clients, which is really strange. Anyways, going on.
Podcast that releasing any videos would re-victimize those impacted.
We're not going to re-victimize women. We're not going to put that shit back out there. It's not happening, because then he wins. Not doing it. You want to hate me for it? Fine.
But, internally, there's a lot of, even within the administration, there's internal conflict.
Oh, okay.
Like, the head of FBI really wants it. Second in command at FBI has been, causing problems because he's like, no, these have to be released.
Yeah. So the FBI wants them out.
Yep, the top 2 guys there do.
And Bonnie does it.
I don't know what Bonnie does. Bonnie wants whatever job.
Sure.
Why is there suddenly this internal conflict within the same administration that aggressively campaigned in 2024 to fully release the Epstein files to the American public? What new revelations did the DOJ and FBI make to now say that an incriminating client list does not exist? DOJ analyst Joseph Schnitt comments.
Would also like to point out that we know for a fact there are at least 200 Epstein victims. We know this because there were depositions taken in New York for the conviction of Ghislaine Maxwell. who was convicted. There was a trial process. We know there's at least 200 what are called Jane Doe victims. These are victims the courts know the name, but the courts have not released the name. 100 of those Jane Doe victims appeared for a conference on Tuesday where 10 of them spoke out. They spoke about being essentially passed out to clients. We know one of the clients is Prince Andrew, who was second in line to be King of England. We also have very good reason to believe that there are people on that list, including high-ranking princes and members of the royal family of the royal house of Saud, and who have been tied to former prime ministers of Israel. These are the people that were involved, and now there is no client list. And again, only 2 people, Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein, were involved in the trafficking of a minimum of 200 women. We have also started to hear the number, quote, thousands bantied around. It's hard to know whether that's just sort of, people, oh, it was thousands, or that's true. We don't know what the number is. The 200 is only the 200 that came forward and gave some form of testimony and were registered with a court. There could be a great deal more. That may be most of them. There's no way to know. All right, I apologize. I truly detest listening to the Project Veritas or O'Keefe for the reasons said earlier, and we are going to discuss why we're giving this any attention once we get to the end of this.
On these inconsistencies, and informs our undercover journalist that even if anything was to be released, it would be heavily redacted in favor of the Republican Party, indicating that this DOJ official, Joseph Schnitt, probably leans Democrat.
Do you think the stuff with Epstein will actually get released or not at all?
If it does, it'll be heavily redacted and his name won't be in it.
But those files do exist.
There's files,
yeah,
for sure. There's, thousands and thousands of pages of files. But again, if they're released in any way, it's going to be very redacted. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files, leave all the liberal, Democratic people in those files, and have a very slanted version of it come out where it's like, look at what is going on, without releasing any of their bad behavior.
This is James O'Keefe. You know me for exposing the truth.
Oh, God. Yeah, no, I don't know him for exposing any of that. And this is, I think, just, okay, that's a commercial for O'Keefe. We're going to skip that, and we're going to listen. Okay, this part's important, and we mentioned this before. The Bureau of Prisons does not put sex offenders in minimum security. They don't do it. She's in minimum security. Why? And she's not... The sex offenders, it gets difficult because, I mean, again, we've heard stories of, and it can vary state to state. 2 underage kids, 16 or 17, have sex, male and a female. The female is told, okay, don't do that again. The male is convicted of rape, even though it was consensual, and for whatever reason the male is, and the female says it was consensual. They were dating. They'd been dating, and we've seen and heard the stories. Ghislaine Maxwell is not in any of those groups. She is not just a sex offender. Saying she's a sex offender is a huge disservice. She was a sex trafficker, an international sex trafficker, picking up young girls who wanted to be models, who were told they were going to be models, who were told they were going to be famous, and putting them on an island to be sex slaves. That's what she was, and right now she's helping train puppies at a minimum security facility to be service animals. It's not a joke. All right, let's go on.
Which is against BOP policy because she's a convicted sex offender, and they're not supposed to get minimum security prisons, which is an interesting detail because she's getting a benefit, which means they're offering her something to keep it on shut.
The difference between a low security prison and a minimum security prison is that minimum security prisons are designed for non-violent offenders with short sentences. They often have no perimeter fencing, and inmates are housed in dormitory-style rooms. We looked into the Bureau of Prisons policies, and Schnitt's claim is in fact correct. Convicted sex offenders are historically ineligible for minimum security facilities. Schnitt is also very credible by virtue of where he works inside the Department of Justice. This raises significant questions about why Ghislaine Maxwell was provided such special treatment at a time where the DOJ and the FBI are under heavy scrutiny for their handling of the Epstein file.
All right, as much as I hate to say it, he is, of course, correct. And we've seen it was released, the assessment of her eligibility and where she would go in far as prisons based on recidivism risks, based on the likelihood that she would be of danger to those around her. And while in many cases she was considered low risk, nonviolent, offenses, yada, 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 she was nonetheless extraordinarily high on the sex offender scale and ineligible to be where she is now. So since this video was released, and we're going to close that because I really hate seeing that guy. Let's put this out here. Oh, nope, that's the wrong one. That's from last night. We're going to put that out there. Okay. Joseph Schnitt, the man in that video who was talking, he thought, to an anonymous woman, someone he was dating. He went on 2 dates with her. I met a woman named Skylar on Hinge, a dating app, in July 2025. Her profile is no longer findable. Okay. We had 2 dates. She claimed to be an au pair in Georgetown. She gave no clues she was a reporter. She's not a reporter. This was not at any rate. She gave no clue that she was recording our dates. Had I a clue, I would have immediately ended. No shit. My profile indicated I did government work, but I did not specify for which agency. I never discussed what I do at the DOJ. Well, that's a lie. The comments I made were my own personal comments from what I've learned in the media and not from anything I've done or learned via work. I have no knowledge of the circumstances around Miss Maxwell other than what is reported in the news. I've never divulged anything about what I do at work, and recall that if she had asked if I had any knowledge, I would say I only know what's been reported in the media. Mostly true, actually. So, what have we got? The source is completely unreliable. The source of this video is O'Keefe, who consistently edits video to make people look as bad as possible. It has been my experience that if you take O'Keefe's videos and apply the maximum charity possible, and what that means is you take everything they say and interpret it in the best possible way towards the person saying it, you get as close to the truth as you can on any of these videos. So when I take a look at what this man is saying, Joseph Schnitt, what I see is a man trying to impress a beautiful woman by bloviating and saying all of this stuff. I believe him when he says none of this was of personal knowledge by way of him being involved in any redacting or anything like that. Having said that, we do know a couple of things despite the lack of reliability of the source. We know what he said. He has copped and admitted to what he said. And here's a couple of questions about what he said. First of all, if he at the DOJ in a high level believes that this is what's happening, if he is capable of going to a random stranger and saying, oh yeah, the files are going to be redacted, of course they're going to be redacted. If a high-level member of the DOJ can say that easily, does that not mean that it's understandable why every American should doubt the veracity of anything coming out of the DOJ. Anything. This guy literally said to this woman, oh yeah, of course we're doing it. And he said it that easily. I don't take that. O'Keefe would probably want me to take that as evidence because he's seen it do. No, I don't. No. I think Schnitt was just trying to impress a woman. That's it. But having said that, he still works at the DOJ, and he still said it. And he still felt it was credible. He says now, they take apart later because he said, well, I didn't say anything that wasn't in the media or anything like that. None of it's personal information. I believe him. I completely believe him. Again, I think they're trying to paint this out. This is what this guy does. O'Keefe is going to paint him out to be the guy with the pen doing the redacting. That's what O'Keefe is going to say, and I see no evidence of that. I suspect it is not true. But this guy has been at the DOJ for a very long time. He knows how it works, and I take what he says as credible, that at least he thinks that's probably what's happening. At a minimum, he thinks he can say it without getting any pushback to a complete stranger. This is extraordinarily important video. The fact that he said this is extraordinarily important because it's a member of the DOJ admitting it's credible that the DOJ is redacting all of these files because he's saying it to impress a girl. It's that simple. It's staggering, it's mind-blowing, and it is absolute proof that anybody who says, I think the DOJ is redacting these files, is completely unreliable, is lying to us, and is engaged in a cover-up, has very good reason to say and think that, because even inside the DOJ, they're willing to say that. He's in the DOJ, and he's willing to say that in public to a stranger. O'Keefe is going to paint him as being involved. And they already started to do that in this video. That's one of the reasons I hate playing O'Keefe videos. And we spoke about this at the beginning. Just because O'Keefe is now, quote, on our side, if you're on the left, just because he's saying things that you like and agree with, doesn't make him reliable now. It doesn't add weight to his credibility of what he's saying. He is not credible no matter what he says. That footage applying the maximum charity, and I have to because it's coming from O'Keefe, who, for a fact, edits videos to sensationalize them and to make them worse. But going both with what the guy said and with what we know he sent as an internal memo to his boss afterwards apologizing for this, giving the maximal charity, we still know he was willing to say that there's a cover-up to a complete stranger. In public. We know that. That's the ball game. Because if a high-ranking member of the DOJ can think that by watching the media, then he has so little confidence in his own DOJ, he believes that there's either a cover-up or at least a possibility enough that he can impress a girl bragging about it. Oh yeah. There's a cover-up. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, that he knows. But he believes it's possible, and he works at the DOJ. That's the ball game. This video is, I think, extraordinarily compelling. I think it's extraordinarily important, but I think it has to be handled very delicately. Because I don't think this guy has any direct evidence of what he's talking about. And if O'Keefe's history on these kinds of videos is any indication, the guy doesn't, because in the past he's done that where people have said, oh yeah, we're destroying ballots. That's not what they said. When you take he edits out one word, changes everything. And he's been convicted for doing shit like this. So we take just what we heard on the video, we take the admission afterwards, we take what we have as evidence, not any of O'Keefe's claims, and we realize that this video may have been edited, but we watch it carefully just for what we know he said, And that, by itself, is the ball game. So it has to come from O'Keefe. And people who want to take it, people who want to do it easy. I get it. I get it, and that's going to be most of the other channels you could be watching. Unfortunately, In Time is not the channel for the easy. It's for the let's do this as close to right as we possibly can. People who want to do it easy are going to say, oh my God, he busted him. He busted the whole DOJ. It's not. It's there, but it's a couple of extra steps because it's O'Keefe. But yeah, that video is absolutely staggering and mind-blowing because of how long he's been at the DOJ and because he's willing to say those things to a complete stranger in public. That means he probably believes that that's what's happening. And if he believes it, we should all believe it. This destroys any credibility that the DOJ has. Now, again, O'Keefe likes to destroy individuals, so he's going to go after Schmitt, and he's going to say, yeah, oh yeah, he knows, and he's going to want him subpoenaed. All of that's pointless. It's pointless. The guy was showing off. That's all he was doing. But it's how he did it that's important. Anyways, that is the video. My suspicion is you're going to be hearing a lot more on it. But I think, again, it was worth discussing what it means to have reliable evidence and what is and is not reliable evidence. The post, his response to his superior about these events is reliable evidence. What he said that isn't edited is reliable, so long as you apply maximal charity to it and realize that it may be out of context. Nonetheless, it's pretty damning stuff. That it came from O'Keefe. Between that and the fact that I was cheering on Marjorie Taylor Greene, there isn't enough mescaline in the world to make this seem right. Did I just say that aloud? Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to quickly take a look at our live chat and see what people are talking about. But it's this was a tough one because the problem is the source is not reliable. The source is not reliable, period, end of discussion, and nobody's going to convince me otherwise without, you basically need God himself to come down. If you take a look at what this guy has done in the past, and everybody on the left, their inkling is going to be, well, he's reliable now because, and I know I'm repeating myself and I'll leave it at this, but if he's going after the right, it must be because he's telling the truth. Yeah, if he had integrity. But since he doesn't have integrity, then I don't know why he's going after the right. Maybe he's doing it because he's been out of the news so long, it's all he's got left. I don't know, but the man has absolutely zero integrity. So, he is not more credible because he's going after the right for the first time ever. He is not more credible because he's saying things that we already believe. None of this adds to his credibility. So we have to just take a look at what we have on the tape, which is not a lot. The admission that we have to his boss afterwards, which reinforces what we heard on the tape, and we go with that, and that's all we got. But that alone is damning. All right. Thank you for your time, and I hope you understand why we had to go through those distinctions. It's important. The media literacy, news literacy is at a all-time low. I don't know if it's all-time, but it's pretty low right now, and I think it's important to make sure that we understand how we get our information and who we listen to and why and how much. So thank you for that. Our next scheduled show is Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard with Isandering. We're going to have a lot to cover. But we're also expecting breaking on at least 2 other stories. So join us on the Discord. You can keep up with that. Or make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and hit the bell so that you get notifications when we go live on something like this. Mainstream media has not picked this up hugely. This is on the Hill. It's on a few other sources, but it's also sort of in the back. We'll see where they go with it. But This is the most damning indictment of the DOJ so far. It's a high level member of the DOJ basically saying, "Yeah, of course we're redacting it. Are you crazy?" That's literally wow. Just saying it. So we'll keep an eye on it for you. And in the meantime, I hope everyone here has a good weekend, and we will see you guys when we probably like 15, 20 minutes. Have a good night.